Hi, welcome to XReality Podcast. I'm the host, Dominic Wu, and beside me is our guest, Jared Bienz. Hi, Jared. Could you share a little bit about your background with us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. I have been in the XR space for a little bit over a decade. I was with Microsoft for over 16 years. And during that time while at Microsoft, I was part of the original teams that helped launch the HoloLens 1, eventually helped launch HoloLens 2. And I got to help a lot of the partners around the world build their first applications on the device. And then toward the end of my time with Microsoft, I was also working on the Microsoft Mesh platform. So I got to work on both the AR side and the VR side of the XR spectrum while I was there.
Wow. So, can you tell a little bit about, for example, like you mentioned, you work for Microsoft for 16 years and help with like the first HoloLens. And what's about the Mesh platform? Can you give us like some introduction? Because I heard of it, but I haven't used it. So,
Sure. I mean, I don't really want to speak for that product too much because I'm not there anymore. I haven't been with Microsoft for a couple years now, but Um, the way that I would think about that is a continuum of kind of what we started. At least for me personally, I really loved what we did with HoloLens, and I really loved mixing the digital world in with the physical world. But HoloLens obviously was a very, very expensive device. It was like $4,000. And so you had to be a company with a lot of money and a problem that was really well suited to that device to justify spending the money on it. And so I think Mesh um, was created with the idea of trying to bring spatial computing to more people and to more problems that could be solved in business. So uh, it was in some ways very much like Horizons, Meta Horizons, but they had scripting and you could write code and bring in AI and things like that. So the platform continues to evolve, but that was part of what I helped work on. I helped work on the original avatar interactions and the early versions of the scripting language for that platform.
wow. So yeah, I tried like HoloLens in the past and it was very, very heavy. And I was impressed like a long time ago that, oh, I can wear the entire computer on my head. It's like pretty much, the entire computer and you can hear the sound and like running. And also it's very hot. And I was impressed by how I can see something projected on the, like a simple glass and I can interact with it. So it was like a blow my mind. And later on, I think you see like all the mixed reality, those types of like a technology start evolving. For example, Orion. Everybody talks about it, but not many people use it. So
Yeah.
yeah, and it seems
Well,
like
we were talking before the podcast started about how you don't really know what the experience is like until you wear it.
yeah.
And I think that's to me the magic of HoloLens was not just that it had a display, but it was that the world locked content, right? So if I put a hologram on my desk, it stayed on my desk. And that's where people that haven't had a chance to use these mixed reality pass-through devices don't necessarily understand like why Orion is such a big deal is because Orion still has that world locked content, whereas like the Meta Ray Bans have no display at all, and the next iteration will have a display, but it will just be a heads up display. It won't actually have the head tracking, and that's one of the things that I really liked about the demos that we saw at the Google conference of the Android XR is that they had some of that world locked content, even on a very lightweight form factor device. So it's awesome to see that shrinking smaller and smaller, and I hope to see that trend continue.
Wow. Yeah, I think for example, like Ray-Ban, I find out I every time when I walk my dog, I wear Ray-Ban. Why? Because it's not really visual display that I need. It's more like I listen to podcast and audiobook. And it's very convenient for me to listen to it and also take photos of my dog. So So yeah, so I find it is very convenient for me. And I think that right now we code it AI glass, right? Because there's no visual implementation, but I believe pretty soon it will be AR glass. But in the future, maybe we just say it normal glass because since every glass has it. So yeah.
Well, and you talked about the heat of HoloLens. I think, you're always trading off the weight of the device, battery life, and capabilities. So if you have no display, then you have really long battery life. If you have display but not head tracking, you get medium battery life. And if you have display and head tracking, you get low battery life, right? So
Mm.
I can see definitely hybrid devices that have a display that's off most of the time, and then the display wakes up for certain heads up notifications, but doesn't go into full head tracking mode until you have an application that needs that capability, right? And the device just kind of mixes in and out of those things as the applications need it.
Yeah. I agree with you that for those types of like a device, sometimes it will have like over like it. I believe those devices will become lighter and lighter, and the RAM or the chips will be more powerful than before. So the size can be smaller and less heat. I think in the future we can probably just wear the glass like the glass that you wear right now, and it will have a lot of functions such as like a personal assistant, and it will know you so much. I remember one of the podcasts that Mark Zuckerberg recently joined. He mentioned that he want like a Meta AI. I don't know. It's just his vision to be your best friend. And he said that, oh, the normal American only has like a three friends and everybody feels lonely. So he want Meta AI to be your friends. So yeah, I think in the future we will have I remember, I don't know which speaker mentioned that, oh, in the future, your descendants or your kids, their spouse might be might not be human. And I was
Loneliness is definitely, a type of pandemic in the world. And I do think that AI will be, some types of AI will be companions. We were talking before the show started about the app that I'm working on right now to help people better communicate. I definitely think that AI companionship will be a thing, but I do also think that, um, how much those companions are allowed to know about us is going to be limited by how much we trust the companies that make them and what they do with that data. The Google conference, she showed a demo that started with her drinking a cup of coffee, and then later in the conference, she's like, "Hey, do you remember where that coffee cup was from?" Right?
yeah, yeah.
And it told her, and and everybody's like, "Yay!" But I was thinking, wait, so it's watching everything I'm doing, and Google knows
Yes.
what coffee I'm drinking, like, I don't know if I want Google having that information about me. So I do think that that companionship is a real thing, but I think that there are people that are going to want to be a bit more guarded about what they share with it. And so I think there will be opportunity for providers other than just the largest companies out there to provide, to create AI companionship.
I remember a long time ago, I interviewed another XR leader. He mentioned that maybe in the future we will have like a governance, self governance our data. For example, like we centralize all our data and we give access, partial access to some certain device, so we don't have to so company doesn't own our access and we can revoke anytime. So I think that that might be good because we own our data, right? Right now, I think a lot of systems were broken. For example, like a medical system that I was like, why this is my body, my health, why I couldn't even access. I need another party to request for me. Feel like I'm not stupid, and that's me, and nobody care about my health more than myself. And those parties, I don't know. I just personally think all the datas, all the medical records should be governed by ourselves because we care. Yeah.
Well,
No.
a medical data is a great example of personally identifiable information that you may or may not want to share. Um, I love that idea. I think the problem surrounding that is, In the same way that a lot of the metaverses are walled gardens, applications have spun up that way, right? Uh, Uber has an idea of you as a customer and a rider, and Lyft has an idea of you as a customer and a rider, and that data is the same data, but is duplicated and stored in both of their platforms, right? Because there's not a central platform for you to store that data and for you to lease that information. I think that possibly that could be created, but I don't think that the companies are necessarily incentivized to use it because having that customer data is valuable to them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we would have to, a company would have to come out and offer that service, and customers would have to push for it to be used for that to take off. But I'd love to see that happen.
Yeah, yeah. I personally think that we are a bag of data, and companies are harvesting our data. If you see like an app is free, pretty much you exchange the free service with your data. Yeah.
Yeah, read. So the app I've been working on uses a lot of AI, and the privacy is very, very important to me. So I've been reading the terms and conditions of uh, OpenAI and Claude and Google very closely. And
Which one is better?
uh, I would say that, well, personally, I would say that OpenAI and Claude are a lot closer to what I'm more comfortable with than with Google. Google has features that you can turn on that you don't necessarily realize could leak information. So even if you're using Google Gemini and you've opted into the privacy model, the private model, where you're not allowing them to train on the data, if you turn on, and I forget what the feature is called, but it basically allows search results to be generated based on your conversation history. Then you open up the conversation history to be used for like debugging purposes, and Google employees can then see that data, right? So you may not realize, you might think, oh, yeah, I want to enable the users to search based on their history. It might not dawn on the developer that now you're opening up that history to be viewed, by a software engineer potentially. So I think it's really, really important that as people are building these systems, especially that are understanding the terms that they're buying into with the AI. And I would even recommend that customers that buy AI driven apps kind of demand that the companies publish which AIs they're using so that they can understand those terms as well.
Yeah, and if you see that, like OpenAI right now is partner with like a university, yes, and education programs, and also other kind of like AI companies is kind of follow up, like think, I don't know, Perplexity or I don't know, Anthropics. They have like a education plan, or I forgot like Google, because all those chatbots, I feel like they just like rotated like who has whatever feature everybody follows. So that's why I find out that they all similar in a certain way, but they are trying to do something better than others. It's like it's a very good competitive competition, because if there's only one monopoly, then we
Yeah.
might get in trouble. So I love to see so many like different AI companies, they are trying to provide better service. Yeah.
Yeah. And it like the model, I don't know. I think models can change over time, but you can kind of look at a company of how they've monetized in the past to understand how they're going to monetize in the future. You can use Gemini APIs and Gemini AI for free in an application. They're one of the only AIs that you can use for free without embedding it locally. But of course, if you do that, if you're using it for free, then you're allowing them to train on your data, right? So, like to your point, if you're not paying for the product, chances are you are the product. So just really understand what you're getting when you do it for free.
Yeah, recently, I use Llama 4. I applied the free version, preview version. It's free to use for sure. And I also try like have you heard of like a AI manager system? It's called N8N.
Mm-mm.
Oh, oh, it's pretty much it's a free open source, free. If you heard free, it's pretty much you pay for it, but through your data. So I think what Llama is amazing is that it had first it's free. It's already very amazing because for example, like a ChatGPT, if you use the ChatGPT API, you just play around and the bill is like, oh, $30, $40 already. I think all those like models are very, very costly and expensive. And I know that, the energy cost consumption is probably too high. And I think if you put like, for example, like if you put like a literature, you put like a copy and paste and put run through llama, it can or somehow by link of like a NAN, you can hook up a lot of different types of like a API and also different tools, and you can pretty much generate a lot of interesting story just by the background power of like a ANA. And
Well,
it,
I think we should be clear that it's not necessarily true that if it's free, you're giving away your data if it's a model that you can run locally. So if you
yeah.
can download the model and run it entirely locally, then you are getting it truly for free. You're spending your own energy to run it, right? And the biggest problem with some scenarios is that you may not have enough horsepower to do it locally. We were talking about companion AI, and that's something I'm very interested in long term. Companion AI requires at least speech recognition. It requires the inference for the AI to think about what you've said to it. And if you're talking about an AI that can observe what you're doing and understand the context of where you are, then you also need the image recognition and the image inference, right? That's at least three models that are very heavy, and running them locally on a BV machine would be hard enough. Running them locally on a phone is pretty much impossible, at least not with any decent level of accuracy in its recognition, right? So it does make sense for some scenarios that you're going to have to go to the cloud to get the level of accuracy and speed that you need. But then again, like which provider do you want to be the one processing that data?
Yeah, otherwise you have to buy your own server, right? Or
Oh,
a super high end. I remember like a Jensen Huang recently released like a new set of like only for AI developer design the types of like a computer. So I think our tools need to be upgraded just to run that service, run that model if we want to keep all our data safely. Yeah, and I think at Llama you can download it, and also a lot of really really good, for example, like a 3D models like a Huyuan 3D generate. It's probably the best, but it's a Chinese like a kind of app or like a model, and you can download it in your computer. And the reason why they charge it or you need to, use kind of like their server, the reason why is because it's just too big. If I wanna download it and run in my computer, I have to buy a super powerful computer and I need to buy a lot of servers just to run that 3D model thing. So for example, like a NAN, they have a lot of credential they they block. So that's why like at some point I am still trying to do locally and just to have some fun, like, doing some email and trying to like auto trigger. But I can find that this types of model, and I find out all the AI company that charge for tokens. They charge for credits. It's very different from the previous like a SaaS business model. It's more subscription, and I can see like, oh, you use more and you pay more, like, and you pay as you go. So I think those types of new types of business model and also the new way of doing your kind of like a self project is is kind of doable, but a lot of things need to be upgraded. And even though they say it's free, but eventually when you see it, it's actually not free. And it's free. It's pretty much they want your data. They want you to use it to train their model to be better so they can charge in the future.
yeah. Well, and the tokens, um, effectively, what you're paying for with your tokens is the compute, and the when you can run the models locally, there's a certain kind of size limit. It really depends on your graphics card and how much graphics memory that you have. But for example, Whisper is a very, very powerful speech recognition. It's the speech recognition that's used by OpenAI when you go into full blown chat mode or voice mode. You can download Whisper and you can run it locally on an Android phone, but you have to run the light model, like the lightest light model. And the accuracy of that light model running on your Android phone is at best like 60% of the accuracy of when you're running it in the cloud. Because when you're running it in the cloud, you've got way more RAM and way more GPU available to you to process that speech stream, right? And so that's what your tokens are paying for. It's paying for all of that cloud compute to give you the higher accuracy and the speed on it. So it's trade-offs, and I think energy use, speed, accuracy, and privacy are all on some continuum that you have to plot and figure out what is the right one for your use case.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that, like, for example, like a privacy, before people pretty much didn't really notice that part of our rights, but I think recently you see like AI, a lot of people's voice, for example, start with like a voiceover actor, right? Movie, right? You can see a lot of like a text to prompt to actual movies. Yeah, and text to prompt to stories. And you can see like recently I think Google they released their models and from text to like a the realistic movie, and people inside can start talking and start acting like the real movie. And I was pretty impressed by how technology is pretty much, I don't want to say replace, but if you see this types of trend, um people with ideas can immediately like prompt, and before it took us a lot of time to find people, pay a lot of money for people to act. And now it's all pretty much start with free version. So what do you see these types of like a job replacement, and how like a us for I think AI is impacting for all the areas. So what do you see these types of like a transition, and how can, for example, right now I'm teaching, how well, what's your advice for the young
Yeah,
creators?
man. So AI is obviously incredibly powerful. I use it all day, every day, and I'm not going to say that you shouldn't. But I think the biggest thing is understanding your material and truly understanding what you're using it for. Because, um, you know, you could say AIs hallucinate, and what a hallucination looks like is different depending on your use case. Hallucination in a text chat is giving you a block of code that doesn't compile, or when it compiles, it throws an error at runtime. And I still get that all the time. Even though the app I'm building right now is in Flutter, which is like the most popular mobile framework, I still get code from ChatGPT and Claude that doesn't work, and I have to understand why it doesn't work. In the movie generation, like Sora and other Runway, those are all amazing, but they don't really understand physics. So you get objects tunneling through other objects, and you have to regenerate the scene because some artifact didn't look right. So I think the biggest thing that concerns me about AI use in education is not that they're using it, it's that they're not understanding the material enough to fact check it, right? They're just taking the answer as gospel and uh, not really understanding where the answer comes from. So when I went to build this app, before I ever installed Cursor and started playing with Flutter, the first thing I did is I took a Udemy course on building Flutter apps because I want to make sure that I understood the framework that I was working with before I started having AI generate a bunch of stuff. And vibe coding is awesome, but vibe coding doesn't mean that you know what you're doing, right? So I
Yes,
it
yes.
I just think like I will never say don't use AI. Use AI as an accelerator. Use AI to like get it functional, but then you're gonna have to understand why something doesn't work when it doesn't work.
Yeah, like right now I'm in the kind of like a position which is AI fellows for California Community College chancellor's programs. And I heard like when 11 of us, like we gather together, the first thing that the teachers kind of concern is that every teacher's a little bit against AI. The reason why is because they think it's cheating. Just like you mentioned that student without the prior knowledge use it and wrote like an amazing essay or amazing, finish amazing assignment, but teacher knows that, oh, you generate from AI, and the teacher doesn't really know whether the student know it or not. So I know a lot of voice is like I ban. I remember when I joined some academic senate kind of like a discussion for the policy of like each class. A lot of teachers said that, oh, the teacher can say yes or no to the AI, but all the assignment, if students use ChatGPT or any Gen AI to assist them, they need to kind of have a note that, oh, I
Right.
use AI to help me brainstorm. I use AI to edit it, or I use AI for the entire assignment without myself knowing what's going on, something like that. They need to cite it. So, yeah, so I think just like you said that, we have to be aware of how we use it and whether we have the knowledge of knowing what's right or what's wrong of the answer.
Part of the problem in education is a scale issue. I sometimes guest lecture at University of Houston, and I have a friend that's a professor there, and he was talking about how they're having to decide which tests they're going to do electronically versus which tests they're going to do by paper, because they found that if they make it a paper test, it's a lot harder for the students to use, ChatGPT to answer the questions because they can't just copy and paste it. They've got to write it while they're there in class, right? But that becomes like a tenfold effort when it comes to grading it, because now it's back to paper and it's back to going paper by paper and hand grading it, right? So, um, yeah, it's tough. I don't think there's an easy answer for that. I would in there's been a lot of talk in the industry about the, what's that tool that people are using for interviews? It's gotten a lot of flack.
Oh, like the Colombian students use like a leak code kind of cheat.
Yeah. Yeah, leak code getting a lot of flack because leak code tests, like, do you know how to code a certain type of sort algorithm, but that's not necessarily the skills that you use every day on a job. Yeah, like, in the same way that I would say a good interviewer will know how to ask the right questions to see if that person has problem-solving skills, like, that's the direction that I think we need to go in testing, not just like, "Do you know the answer to this question, but can you problem solve?" If I give you a question that's related to information we talked about, but isn't it, can you answer those questions? And it'll be tough to switch over to that, but that's kind of what I think the direction that we need to go.
Yeah, I think more like a holistic way of problem solving and critical thinking. I think it's very important. For example, I remember people were asking on the forum about like the discussion between teachers. They were asking like, "Oh, I'm an English teacher. And they use pretty much, I would say, all the community college, the teacher, when they give assignment, like they designed the course long time ago, and they use the same material to teach over and over again. And now the assignment probably is too easy for the student to just copy the entire paragraph of the teachers. Teacher usually say, "Oh, please write da 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 with this with this
Yeah.
series," and you just copy that, the assignment and paste to ChatGPT. And for me, I usually open like a 6 different chatbot, and I am in my master degree right now. And I even use, like Google's notebook, LLM, to give me a chart of all the resource. Yeah, I find out it's so convenient for me,
Yeah.
and also I think for me, I don't like to just copy and paste from the really good, answer, I wanna put my thoughts. So I'm more like working with the chat. And a lot of teacher ask like, how can how can they make an assignment that really benefits student, not just copy and paste? And for me, I just reply to the teacher that right now students you can assume them they are cyberman or cyber girl, cyber boys. So pretty much I think we have our current brand, but for Cyberman is that we have chatbot, which is the collective intelligence of the entire humanity. So now it's the combine, not only the you are testing not only the person, but combined with the collective human intelligence. So maybe the assignment need to be 1,000 times harder. For example, like if you ask for one essay, maybe you ask them to write a book published to Amazon and let the people review, let the review 4.5 up, and you can get an A. You just make the bar very high and allow them to use AI. They will cheat anyway. So
Yeah, maybe. I think this professor friend of mine has talked about how um, COVID hit his student body pretty hard in um, how like how hardworking. I don't want to say that not hardworking, but how focused they are on doing um, like grunt work. Like being asked to publish a book would probably get pretty hard pushback. But I do think there's opportunities to have I don't know, more like live interactive discussion that would be more like what you would have in the workplace. So maybe there's an opportunity while in class, and I'm thinking comp sci here, but maybe there's an opportunity while in class to be like, all right, how would we architect this together? Like here's the design considerations. So like, what platforms should we choose? What would the design of these services be like? And every student has to answer part of that. And you're kind of, as a professor, you're evaluating how they're doing it on the fly rather than they get to do it overnight and have ChatGPT do it for them. So I don't know, maybe it's almost like the opposite. Maybe you're measuring it more on the fly stuff, but it's weighted a lot more of like how quickly can you answer this question and how good are you on the spot, which may not be good for some personalities now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, it's a hard problem to solve. I mean, I think AI is going to, in general, be more good than bad. I think it will raise the general level of intelligence of everyone. Um, but I do think that people that don't care about putting in the extra effort to understand the answer just won't, right? And so that could end up kind of separating those really like the advanced thinkers that really want to understand how things work and use it as a tool from those who just want to use it as a quick way of getting things done. I think that's probably kind of the general divergence that we'll see.
yeah, yeah. And I think right now, as far as I know, that community college is working super hard to create a lot of Gen AI courses. And personally, I got point to a couple of like interesting projects, which I think I don't know about other like another parts of higher education, but as far as I know, they are working on even put like a vibe coding, like course or certification. Like they are planning and yeah, and it's launching very soon. It's probably, like this summer, you can start getting some training for vibe coding or Gen AI course for everyone in the kind of like a Bay Area. So I think this is types of things that even higher education start realize that. And I know that a lot of teachers, especially, for example, like I think a K-12 is more concerning because K-12 is all about more like a basic and, yeah, if you use, ChatGPT to do all the basic and you really don't know what's going on, I think that that's probably there's a problem for it. So I think people are still or teachers are still figuring out how can we balance between, AI and, the real person
I
feel.
think one positive side of it is that it lowers the barrier of entry. I think programming has always required a certain way of thinking. You had to be able to think like a machine, and and so only certain types of people would pick up coding. I think vibe coding um, makes coding less scary,
Yeah.
and so more people will be attracted to it. More people will play around with it.
Mm.
Um, and so, hiring a junior developer right out of college, theoretically, that junior developer could be more productive because they can be more resourceful with working with the AI to get things done. But I know that AI doesn't suggest advanced patterns. Like if you're vibe coding, it's not going to do dependency injection, or it's not going to do refactoring your code into individually serviceable libraries, right? So while I think the junior developers will get a lot more productive, um, theoretically, you could end up with more code more quickly that is like spaghetti code that the senior engineers have to go back and refactor, to make it serviceable, manageable code. So, um, I don't know. In the end, I still think more positive than negative, but it's going to change the types of skills that even the senior developers will have in the space.
Yeah, right now, like I taught a class called Coding for Designers and Artists, and it was being told by more like a, I would say, traditional way of coding in the past. But when I was designing the course, I was kind of teaching the basic and directly jump into more like vibe coding, and at the end, I think within 18 weeks, students were able to create a pretty decent game without
Mhm.
prior knowledge.
Yeah.
And I remember I invited a lot of industry people to be the judge because I had like a little small hackathon inside my course.
Yeah.
And they were impressed that, wow, those students, they didn't know C sharp 3 months ago, and now they can pretty much build a game, full playable game, within, like a few weeks. And also, a lot of people encourage them to just publish on itch.io or, Steam or, SideQuest. So you can put on your resume or a portfolio. This is a published game. So I
Yeah.
was impressed, like, wow, I remember when I learned Unity, it took me like a couple of years to understand what's going on. And then right now, students, like within 3 months, they can publish a game. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you and I met originally at MIT Reality Hack, and I have volunteered to help run their mentor program. So each year when we have that hackathon, I help bring mentors in. And that was one thing that was like just night and day difference from this year compared to last year
Wow.
is they're just the volume of questions went way down. And, it's not that they didn't ask questions, but the questions that they asked were the much harder, deeper questions, right? And it was very obvious that a lot of the, like, "How do I get Unity set up?" Or "What do I do with a transform?" Like, those questions are all just answered by ChatGPT now, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that's awesome. Like, I guess we'll have to think about, like, what level of mentorship we need at the event going forward. I
Wow.
I hope that we continue to need a similar number of mentors, because I hope we expand to reach new areas of technology, add more focus on AI and other things. But I definitely think that AI is answering a lot of the basic questions that you used to really need to have a mentor there, especially on a time crunch. And that's what that's your most limited resource at a hackathon is time. And so if you don't have to waste time getting those basic questions answered, then absolutely, use the tool for that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the pretty much a lot of chatbots offload teachers, like a time spent in the class. And the interesting thing is that you can see teachers, some teachers, if they teach something that it's more like I would say, emotional or more like a life coaching. I think those teachers tend to really love ChatGPT to answer all the basic questions. However, if the teacher only teaches the basic, they will feel threatened that ChatGPT is taking over their job. And I recently read an article wrote by a teacher. He said that in the future, teacher will be DJ, very similar to DJ. DJ can sense the vibe in a crowd and change, the subject, right? It's like a change the music and keep the crowd or keep the audience like a vibe, very high energy. Same as teacher. Teacher can offload some, instructional, some, just like you say, basic stuff, offload to personal assistant. And what teacher can do is to uh, give vibe, maybe live coaching, keep the student high vibe to wanna learn. If you, I remember there is a school called Alpha School. It's for K-12. They have a very interesting way of setting up their curriculum. All the students they are K-12, and there is no grade. They only go to the school and look at the computer, learn academic only for 2 hours with AI. And their academic result is much higher than everybody else. And then the rest of the time, they don't have instructor, they don't have teacher. The rest of the time, people, they call facilitator, will come into the classroom, take them outside of the classroom, and go to the market and find what's the problem, and ask students to find a solution to the problem, and later on, create the solution and pitch back to the owner and start their own business. I was like, wow, this is types of schools that is so inspiring. It's like only K-12. And you can see a lot of like in higher education, there's a term called middle school, which is allows a high school student to enroll into the college course. A lot of middle school they are doing workforce or your career design or your job. They've already start thinking, or doing the practical training for their job since high school. So I start thinking about, wow, you see like the coding barrier is getting lower, and the young people like high school K-12, they can start creating their own business. Yeah.
I think that's inspirational, and that's, I guess, in a way, what I hope AI does. I was As you were talking, I was thinking about my time at Microsoft, and especially when I was helping those companies build their first apps. One of the things that I really learned in that career about mentorship is that when possible, you try to understand your audience and you try to start where they're at and level up, right? Like if at all possible, don't repeat the knowledge that they have. Figure out where they're at and figure out how to take them to the next step. And so that's what, you talked about teachers being DJs. I think the mentors and professors, as much as possible, you should be looking at what's the foundation of the knowledge, what's the base level, and how do I teach the next thing, right? Like if we know that AI is not going to teach uh, refactoring or libraries or dependency injection or whatever, like, okay, here are some advanced patterns that AI is not going to teach you. Let me teach you those skills, all right? Or to your point, life skills. Um, Now it's harder to do in really large class sizes because different people are going to be at different points in their journey, right? But just knowing where the bar is, and I think that AI is going to raise the bar. So we should be trying as much as we can to teach above the bar. Um, and yeah, I mean, like it's inspirational. We did something similar at Reality Hack this year. It's the second year that we've done it. It was a founders lab, and so that was, not only is your team there hacking, but how would you build a business out of this? What would your pitch be? Like if you were on Shark Tank, how would you pitch this thing? How would you fund it? How would you sell it? All that sort of thing. And so maybe as AI raises the bottom bar, then those are the skills that we're teaching, those higher level skills of like, okay, not only like how do you do it, but why are you doing it and why are you building it in a particular way?
Yeah, I do think that I read a lot of articles that people start saying that, oh, they can see one founder funding $1 billion or more worth in the future by, managing or directing a group of AI. So I can see these types of like entrepreneurship. As you see, like right now, there are so many layoffs, right? You can see, as far as I know, the big companies, every 3 months, 6 months. And few days ago, I saw Meta, Mark Zuckerberg said that, oh, I want to raise the bar to, lay off more people. So, yeah, so I can see that even senior is very, I would say it's hard for senior right now, along the junior. I think a junior, I don't even know how can people without any job experience trying to find a job nowadays because I saw a lot of even new startups or the big company they are keep trying to trim off a lot of people and the new startup they only need one senior and a lot of and use knows how to use AI tools. They just want like that one senior person and probably get paid a lot. So for me, I encourage my student to join like a hackathon, like the one that you host, and also a lot of different types of like a hackathon. As far as I know, a lot of companies, big tech, they hire like a staff or they hire people or they I would say sponsor or provide mentorship for the winner of hackathon. So I think for young people, hackathon is definitely a great way to build your career. I wouldn't say get a job, but at least find a way out through hackathon.
Yeah. I mean, I have emotions about the layoffs because, I have a lot of friends in the industry and a lot of people, really good people lose their jobs, and I personally went through that. So as AI raises the bar, personally, I think good companies have a responsibility to their employees to help their employees reskill.
Yeah.
Good companies do. Uh, that's my personal opinion. Now, to your point about going to hackathons and why companies like to hire from hackathons, I think being at a hackathon demonstrates your ability to think quickly on your feet, to be resourceful, to be able to change directions, and to be able to take an idea to a product, right? And so that shows that you are flexible and a quick thinker, and that you can reskill and build quickly. And so to me, people that have gone to hackathons and been successful at hackathons, I can trust that they'll be able to adapt to changing directions as the company evolves or as the needs for skill roles evolve. But I still think that companies need to help their employees grow. Be
Mm.
like, if we're changing the skill set, then there needs to be opportunities for people to say, all right, I'm up for getting that new skill set, rather than just cutting people and replacing them. That's a whole topic for another day, probably.
Yeah, I mean, recently yeah, like you said that. I mean, I also like experienced like layoff, and also I saw a lot of amazing people in the job market. I saw one of my colleague even create kind of like I would say daily or weekly LinkedIn videos talking about how hard it is, like how frustrated it is to find a job. And he was at Meta around 7 or 8 years, and I remember he was the team lead for all the, like, Meta Horizon World, the mobile app design. And I remember I was like impressed by how he can organize the file, like back in 2021, 2022. He was so good in the entire Horizon World rebranding for the mobile app. However, he shares his all frustrations or his journeys of how hard it is in the current market. And I really appreciate that because I think this is kind of like an elephant in the room that I know that it's not normal now, and I know we cannot go back. This will be just more and more um like this types of phenomena will just keep going. And I think the way out is that we just be flexible, and just like you said, that we just keep learning different tools, different skills, be flexible. And whatever we achieve, for example, like a UX UI, feel like it's like a dream that you can just prompt and an entire app just just show up, or if you use like a Replit or anything. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Well,
entire apps just deployed.
I think, especially in the XR industry, there's some perspective I have on this that I think is worth sharing. That um, there are only a few companies in the world that have really invested the resources in the XR space right now. You know, it was Microsoft for a while, it's Google, it's Meta. They're big companies. And keep in mind that with really large companies like Google and Microsoft and Meta, their customers not even their customers buying the product, their customer is really the shareholder. And so companies of that size, for the most part, do what their shareholders want them to do. And so they change directions. And um, one lesson that that was really hard for me to learn leaving Microsoft was to separate my own identity from the job that I had for so long. You know, and I talked to somebody, a friend of mine who was in the most recent round of layoffs at Microsoft, and he was in really, really high spirits because he had already decided like a year ago that he needed to separate his own identity from Microsoft and that he wanted to pursue his passions. And so he was already, before this happened, he was meeting with a career coach and was like, where do I want to go next? And so his layoff to him was just more of a confirmation of the company's goals didn't align with his personal goals, right? And it sucks. And he's in a difficult job market, but he already knows that his passion wasn't going to be possible where he was at, right? So I would just encourage anybody in this space, you know, even if you're like lucky enough to get one of those awesome jobs at Meta or Google or anywhere else, like don't make that part of your identity. Be your own person with your own passions, and just understand that the companies can change directions. That's not about you. Just stick with those passions. And I hope you know, again, we were talking before the podcast about AI and XR, and are they the same thing? Are they different? And I think we're both in agreement that AI is a service that gets surfaced up through glasses if you're wearing them, your phone if you're not. Um, I think that this the size of this industry gets larger. AI becomes a bigger part of it, whether it's through content generation or it's through new types of apps that weren't possible before. Um, you know, companion apps or intelligence on the real world, or in my case, helping people learn how to better communicate with each other. Um, Maybe that expansion opens up the playing field. Maybe we get more companies that come on board that aren't just the big 4 or 5 companies, and that's what I hope is the long-term solution for the scarcity in our industry right now, is that the industry itself grows to support more use cases and that smaller companies are able to invest in that and be successful.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree that, we just kind of like detached ourselves from the big company. I know it's so good to put like oh, X Meta, X, X, Walmart on a LinkedIn profile. For me, I was trying to tell myself, yeah, just like you said, that I was trying to detach myself. I know it feels so good to say I'm part of it, but yeah, it's time to start your personal journey. And I think the interesting thing is that by jumping around, like you, I saw you have like another like a Udemy course, right? You are a teacher and you are the reality hack, like helping out finding mentors. So you participate a lot of different activities and being really flexible, right? You mentioned that the AI, right? The AI like a project you are working on. So I think being flexible and being open and try different things, I think is right now that people still, in the market. We can think through like how can we re-identify ourselves and pursue something that we all feel satisfied.
Yeah, and that last part I think is really important. It's not just about being flexible, but it's what can you find that you're passionate about learning and doing. And um, after leaving Microsoft, one of the big questions I had to ask myself was how much of what I did for the last 16 years is because I was really passionate versus because I was really good at it. And they're not always the same thing. Like some people get that really mixed up. I certainly did. So figuring out of all the things that I did in that 16 years, what did I really love? Like what I really loved was the mentoring and the teaching aspects of it. And yes, I loved the technology too. Uh, but I loved running the hackathons. I loved giving presentations and teaching and helping people build their first apps. And I can do that anywhere. And then when it came to AI for me, I think there was a limiting belief. So that's another thing when you're in this industry and you're thinking about what you want to do is, are there any limiting beliefs? I was in XR so long that I literally thought, you know, that I missed the AI boat. Like I can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm too late for AI. And that was like such a silly limitation. And I got over that and then building this app now is very different than what I was doing before, but I'm just enjoying it so much. So really calling into question those limiting beliefs and just finding what you have a passion for.
Yeah, and I think right now we say XR, AI, right? In the future, it's just technology, like Wi-Fi, right? Before, a long time ago, people were trying to define what's Wi-Fi, internet, all those like terminologies. But I think at the end, it will all blend into technology. We will have glasses that tell us that help us cheating the way up. I think in the future, if we have smart glass, um, right now, I know a lot of teacher were trying to prevent students from cheating by having a live presentation. But I told them that, hey, in the future, the smart glass, your student everybody wears smart glass and tell them all the answers. They just need to say it. And if you ask them any questions, the answer will be on the smart glass. How can you even prevent it? Yeah, so or, in the future, I remember, Meta, Mark Zuckerberg just, share like, oh, they are using like a, EEG, right? Kind of like a,
Mhm.
type, right? So maybe in the future, all the information directly insert into
Goes
your brain.
right in your brain.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you don't even need to wear glass. So what can how can we even prevent cheating? And I said that maybe there's no word called cheating. It's just how can you make the result good? I don't know. I don't know what the future looks like, but
Filter out bad information and make use of good information.
yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, so we discussed a lot of very interesting topic, and what's the one thing that you'd still like to share that we haven't touched on yet?
Oh, I think we've touched on so many good things. I will be at AWE for anyone who's going out there. We didn't talk much about it today, but the app that I'm working on is really focused on helping people better understand themselves. I think it's a really interesting use of technology. We all think, or many people believe that they are a thinking machine that has the ability to feel, but I think it's really the other way around. We're feeling machines that have the ability to think, and so I'm really interested in technology for helping people better understand themselves and have better communication and better connections with other human beings. So if you're interested in that at all, I'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can hang out and chat at AWE. I'd love to see y'all out there.
Cool. Yeah, for AWE, I'm still waiting for some of my schedules. But if I can go, I will book the last minute flight and fly there. So
Excellent.
I haven't buy the ticket. I'm still waiting for some potential projects. Yeah. So yeah, I think I read kind of a post on my Facebook that somebody said that ChatGPT or Gen AI chatbot is replacing fortune telling business. I was like, well, that's so funny. And somebody put, like their birthday and trying to see like what's their, like personality. And
Uh-huh.
also some people, like for me, I was like, wow, when I saw that, I feel like, yeah, let me try it. So I put my birthday, and in Chinese, we have something called like I don't know, I Ching or like a 紫薇 Shu. It's like a somehow the traditional way of getting your life put together and see what's
Okay.
your future and what's your stage. And I put like my all my information in the ancient Chinese way and get in and into that fortune telling system. And I find out, wow, actually ChatGPT was pretty much analyzed really right. And I use like the combination of Western and Eastern, all the different like astrology. Uh yeah, like all the interesting different combination. And I find out, wow. And they ChatGPT even make a poetry for me, like, my entire life from the early stage to the late stage, and I was like, "Wow, that's yeah, really replaced fortune telling business."
Interesting. Well, the future will be interesting for sure. We'll see how these companion things evolve.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Dominique.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes weekly. If you enjoyed this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Support us by giving us a follow and a 5-star rating, or subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Thank you and see you next time.